Hello, and thank you for joining me on this episode of In the Trenches. I've got an incredible guest lined up here today. He is Alice Cooper's personal assistant and photographer. I discovered his work not too long ago, and when I did, I was blown away. In fact, I saw much of my style and aesthetic embedded in his work, so naturally, I wanted him on the podcast. So without any further ado, Kyler Clark. All right, so Kyler Clark, thanks for coming up, bud.
All right, thanks for having me.
This will be a different episode as I don't have a familiar background to you, which also leads me to why I'm so stoked to have you, by the way. I think you might have made a comment or something on the In the Trenches Instagram page or something. You might have did like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I check in, I was like, whoa, I got into your work and super inspiring on the level of I saw a lot of me or my aesthetics.
That's what I was going for.
There you go. In your work. So I hollered at Troy. I was like, Troy, we gotta get him on the podcast. But more importantly, before anything starts, Serial Kyler. Like that's one of the coolest handle names, that you can go with. For the longest time, I didn't read it clearly. I'm like, I hit up Serial Killer. It's Serial Killer. Yeah. And he's like, what? No, it's Kyler. So I was like, how did that even come about?
It was kind of by accident. So it's a nickname. Serial Killer is a nickname on tour.
Okay.
So while we're on the road, on the radio, I've got a little radio to keep in touch with production office, that kind of thing.
Okay.
It's always Killer. And we had a guy named Kyle on the tour for a while, so that was kind of to keep us separated.
Okay. Yeah.
But then they started calling me Serial Killer. But the killer thing came from, we were in France and all kind of group checking in at the same time at a French airport. Or I know we were doing immigration coming into France. So we're at like Charles de Gaulle, and we were in like huddled up together in a group, and they're going through all our passports. And she gets to mine, and the woman goes, "Who is the killer?" And I'm like, "Wow, that was me. I am that." So that killer stuck for them. And then somebody said Serial Killer, or Serial Killer.
Yeah.
That became a nickname, and I thought, okay, so Kyler looks like killer. What can I go with?
Sure.
That serial, kind of just something.
So there was a slight plan to it.
There was kind of a plan, but
it was presented organically, but then you took advantage of it.
I took advantage of the moniker.
Yourself.
Yes. Brand.
Well,
yes. I do have a brand. You want to see it? No.
Well, I think it's genius, but also your work is too. So like, I want to dive into the work of all that you do, because it's inspired to me, but also like for people who don't know, and I haven't necessarily probably introduced it yet, but like you are exclusively Alice Cooper's photographer.
Yeah, that's one of the two roles. Yeah.
And so how did that all come about?
I started out in the business as started out my professional career, because I was always trying to be a musician, but like when I started getting paid, it was behind the scenes. So I was a guitar technician in LA doing a bunch of small tours here and there. I met a guitar player that had just gotten a gig with Alice, and they hired me as his guitar tech to go on the road. So I started doing that and working with him in that capacity. Then his longtime assistant passed away sort of suddenly, and this is kind of the Cliff's Notes version, but I got asked to sort of help out, and because I kind of knew him and I knew his daughter and the family, and so we worked together on the tour, and so there was some familiarity there, and it was kind of a sensitive time, and so they wanted somebody who he was comfortable with to kind of come in and help out and do this kind of day-to-day stuff. So I shifted over from guitars to that position.
Was that the plan? I mean, did you always... I guess we should go back. Like, what got you into... Wait, let's finish your story, because I wouldn't hear that.
Well...
I kind of jumped forward.
No, it's fine. We could jump forward and back.
Yeah, let's do that.
So the assistant thing was, I didn't start my career to like try to be somebody's assistant, but I did go to school for music business management. So I figured, this is a great way for me to kind of get into that. And Alice's manager, Shep Gordon, is a legend in the business, and so that would give me the opportunity to work closer with him and just learn some more stuff and get a different perspective on the business instead of just being this guitar tech person, which is my interaction with the business side is very limited. It's just, instruments. So this opened up a whole other thing, which I was interested in and have been since I was a kid. But so it wasn't planned, but it was a good fit, I would say.
So you had every intention to play music?
Yes. Yeah, I started.
That was your goal.
Yeah.
Right?
I grew up in a musical household. Well, not a musical house, not a non-musical household.
Sure.
But my brother was a drummer and started kind of putting together a little band, and he said, you should get a bass. And so I got a bass. I mean,
that's what you do.
Whatever.
He said
okay,
it,
sure.
do it.
Yeah, I'll get it. Yeah, sure. Don't beat me up. And so I got a bass and very quickly took to it. And then I got really into it and kept going with that and was in bands myself. And it really derailed my high school career because I was playing in bands instead of going to school.
Okay.
Whole thing.
Yeah.
And then
where was this?
Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah, right. Roswell, Marietta area. Okay. Alpharetta is the town.
Okay.
Yeah. So ended up wanting to go to Berklee College of Music for music business management because I wanted to have a backbone. But the goal was to perform and play. And then moved from Boston to LA. And yeah.
LA for music, right?
Everything
was
music. Everything was music related, yeah.
So where did the split from, what happened in your life, I guess, to say, I'm not going to do music? Was it the normal, struggles, or was it just one thing that said, whatever?
Yeah, well, there was two things. So I didn't want to have a regular day job when I lived in LA. I didn't want to have a regular kind of crummy job. So I wanted to have something that was music related. So I worked at a rehearsal studio doing that, doing kind of helping out scheduling and that kind of thing. I worked at a nightclub. I worked the door there. So I would go from the guitar store that I was working at doing sales and guitar repairs. Then I would go from there to the studio in the afternoons, and then I would go from there to the club and work nights. And so I was doing those three things almost every day, just trying to be in the scene,
Yeah, sure.
And then doing my own band stuff on the side. So in 2005, I had an injury. So we were in Van Nuys. We had this was the name of the band was Callahan, and we had a lockout at Robbie Krieger's house from the guitar player for the Doors. So we had a lockout there, and we would just go in there and rehearse, and it was just our room. And one day we came in, and some stuff was gone, and so we talked to the guy that was kind of running the thing, which is Robbie's son, and he was kind of like, I don't know where your stuff went, but it was only one key, right? Us and him. Long story short, one of his friends went in there and took something. We went to go get it back. We went to talk to the guy. Long story. I ended up getting stabbed 3 times. So
in one incident.
Holy! 3 of the 4 times I've been stabbed.
What?
3 of the 4 times that I've been
3 of the 4?
Yeah. Alice stabbed me one time by accident. But this one...
Troy, remind me to ask about how Alice stabbed him.
Alice stabbed...
So wait, you've been stabbed 4 times, but
4 times.
3 was in one incident.
3 was an intentional... Not my intention, but...
Someone's coming at you.
Someone was coming at me. It happened like that, man. It was so fast.
How big of a knife was it?
It was a switchblade, probably about that big. And it the main injury was my back, and went in between all of my good stuff, cut a little bit of stuff, but almost penetrated the other side.
Ooh.
Didn't feel it.
Just
it was
seared.
It was this guy and his girlfriend. The girlfriend punched me in the back of the head. While we were in the middle of this conversation, everything's fine. He had agreed to go give the stuff back. So she punched me in the back of the head. I turned, and then the guy who was in front of me hit me in the back. I thought he punched me in the kidney, but he stabbed me. And I was like, oh, I guess we're fighting, I guess. I'm not a fighter. So
you didn't even know that you just got
had no idea.
Seared by a blade.
I'm not a fighter. Look at me, So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to defend myself. I go to take a swing at this guy. I miss, of course, because I'm not a fighter.
Sure.
And dislocate my shoulder. I'm like, great. Now I'm defenseless, And so I just, and he hit me at that right afterwards. He hit me in the head. I thought he punched me in the head, but glancing blow, but there was a good gash in my head. And then, so I just grabbed him by the jacket and started kicking him. And he's hitting my arm the whole time. But he's cutting at my arm. So I have a scar here that he almost degloved my arm. That's when, like,
you were just kind of in fight or flight mode.
I couldn't escape, so I had to defend myself, kind of a situation. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, that was bad. And then go to the hospital. He had severed like several nerves back there, not in my spinal cord, but just some core muscles, and it made it very difficult and painful to walk for a long period. So for like 6 months, I wasn't really able to do much. And that was where like that set me off on a different path, because I suddenly wasn't able to perform.
Sure.
Couldn't hold an instrument for very long. I couldn't, the shoulder.
You couldn't rock into it, I bet.
And just moving your amps and moving things around, it became really difficult. And I was so touchy, like once I could walk again and like get into a mode, I'd start walking, and then suddenly it was like the nerves would reconnect.
Is it still there?
It's still there. I still have that problem, but I have managed it. I can manage it with stretching and that kind of thing. But I can't
all over some amps,
all over some.
Maybe
stuff,
it was maybe it was the path that was supposed to take, or
it definitely set me on this trajectory, and I wouldn't go back and fix it.
Right. So what made you grab the camera? Stay in the game.
Yeah,
stay in. That's what it did it for me.
Yeah.
I kind of my way into photography was almost going backwards from directing.
Right.
I just wanted to, I don't know, be organic with the artists and take control of it.
Right. Here's what happened with me. So when I started touring as a guitar technician and started doing interesting things, I'm like, I should really document this for myself and for my future kids. At the time, we didn't have kids. Sure. And then moved to Nashville, met the mother of my kids, and we quickly had my oldest son, Archer. And then I was like, I've got to really, really take. Right around the same time, I get this job as Alice's assistant. And I'll back up. One of the reasons why I wanted to get into music in the first place wasn't the records. Music was interesting to me, but it was magazines, photos of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like looking at these magazines and going, oh my God, there's only like who we talked about this the other day. Who's in the room? Who's taking this picture of this crazy moment in rock and roll history that nobody else saw except for this one other person?
Yeah.
And I got goosebumps like just thinking about those images, and that's what I aspire to.
That's the impetus.
Yes.
Of what I am inspired as well.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because remember I said I see my aesthetic in your work, and I wonder if it's chasing that shot.
Right. It is.
I will do anything, go anywhere, wait however long, and sometimes not get it.
You're in the weeds.
But I know what I'm going to get.
Waiting for the fucking lion to pounce or whatever. So that got me into music. So fast forward, I'm in the room with Alice, and I've got a small little point and shoot camera that I'm taking pictures with. And I had gotten some cool stuff. I was like, oh man, that's actually a really cool shot,
Sure.
But I don't remember who he was in the room with, but it was someone like a Jimmy Page or something like that. And it's just me and him and Jimmy Page, or insert other tremendous rock star.
Sure.
And I'm like, so it was that moment. I'm like, wait a minute, this is one of those pictures. I'm in the picture right now. I'm here, and this is happening, and I'm reaching for my crappy point and shoot camera. I'm like, that's it. So the next day, I went and bought a real camera, and I had been into photography in high school and stuff, and gotten into the film and stuff. So I kind of had a background in knowing how to operate it, but it was definitely a learning curve, getting back up to speed quickly. But
you knew what it was that you wanted to capture,
right? And it was just like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to be there. I'm not a director. You're a director. I'm completely out of my element. If somebody goes, hey, I want you to put together the shoot and come up with like I don't know. I'm not a director. I can't tell people how to be cool or what to do to be cool. I can only capture what's happening there. Mm-hmm. So that's why like structured photo shoots, commercial shoots scare the hell out of me because I'm like, I don't know. Can you do something? Poking somebody with this. Do something. I don't know. I got nothing. But I know what moves me, and I take pictures for myself. That's really I'm like my main consumer. I go through all my images. I'm like, oh man, this is cool.
I do too.
Yeah, I love it.
I shoot it for me.
Yeah,
and if it's good enough for me, and through my intense criteria, for me to like it, and I'm sure it's gonna pass.
Yeah,
the
if
line
we can get
people,
through your filter.
Yeah, my filter is I am absolutely my own worst critic.
Crap.
And it's just like, wow, it's just a little nostril shadow or something. No.
Well, do you do this where like you'll go through your images and you do your filter and then maybe like 6 months later you're kind of fiddling through your hard drives and you come across a shoot and you're like, oh yeah, what about this right here? I completely missed this.
All the time.
That's so weird.
Honestly, it's every shoot.
Yeah.
Every single shoot.
Yeah.
Because you're going through it, probably very soon after you shot it, and you have a built-in idea of what you knew was rad, and also tonally what you're going after.
Sure.
And anything that doesn't hit that visual tone, you're like, nah, that's cool. It's tier two. Where's that wall shot? Where's that? You know, you kind of beat it in.
The wall shot.
The wall shot. You beat it in so much that, getting a week or even longer and just revisiting and just being no pressure and seeing that honest, candid look. You might see his eyes down and just had dismissed it because you're thinking, oh, they're not going to like that. I got to have the eyes, whatever. But the moment is the pensive stare down,
the
whatever.
The in-between shot.
Yes.
I usually go for those. The interesting thing about my situation with Alice is my main job with him is his assistant. So that's like, Alice and Shep, they only really care if I'm delivering on that job.
Sure.
And the photography thing is something that's totally secondary. And so I don't owe anybody I have the cushiest kind of situation. There's no pressure for me to find to do anything. So I'm only really trying to impress myself.
What a position. No one's sitting there saying, hey, I need 5 assets of this.
They do. I work with...
But you get to pick it.
But I can pick it and it's submitted.
Archive.
Yeah. And if you like it, great. If not, great. And so I can really control sort of what my tone that's out there is.
Yes.
And if I don't have a shot maybe I do have a shot but maybe I don't want to submit for that. I don't want that. Because my version of Alice is different than everybody else's version.
Sure.
So I like the stuff that's available from me to be different than the stuff that everybody else gets on the front of the stage, or even when he's doing a structured photo shoot. Here's a good example. Right.
Let's see. I love these.
I have props.
We got here.
We're in Calcutta, Italy, and he's doing a photo shoot with somebody for something. I don't remember what it was, but Calcutta is this beautiful little village.
Like cobblestone.
Yeah, I mean, it's a castle that's up on this hill, and it's turned into this artist commune. It's a really neat place. So they're doing a photo shoot, and I'm sort of like, so the photographer that he's shooting for whatever this magazine is, he was just adjusting himself at this point. They were resetting the light or something. And so I like this shot better than what they got from the other thing because it's just, he's just kind of.
They're going for the cover shot of the magazine, so they're going to pop in for it, boom, and you're getting the background, the arch.
And he's sticking around with me at this point. He knows that I'm taking this picture and he's like, but he won't do that with someone else. He's more serious.
The one thing I noticed about your work, and it's almost unapologetically a thing for you, it's black and white. And I love it because, you got Alice he's dripping in perfect black.
Yeah.
With, the basically built-in contrast.
Yeah.
For you everywhere you, shoot.
I love the inky black darkness. Yeah. But I mean, color distracts me. So I use these Sony cameras, and I won't get into technical crap.
Please do. You know why? Because I was going to tell me, I have a lot of our listeners, I would love to hear some of our secrets. I shoot everything on my camera in black and white.
Me too. Raw.
It's
Black and
raw,
white.
black and white. It's going to color. It's all going to be in color. But if I see a red curtain or a street sign in the background,
It's distracting.
That will kill it for me, and I'll move on.
That's exactly why I do this exact same thing.
Now you get home, and you're looking through your photos, and you're like,
Right.
that was a great moment. That's a
Right.
great shot. Why did I just snap two and move
Right.
on?
Right.
So I kill it. I go black and white because
Yep.
it's instant. I can see my highlights. I see my blacks.
Yeah.
It's boom.
It's so much simpler for my brain. I'm
too.
ADD.
That's awesome. We have a lot of,
Absolutely, yeah,
very
there's some
unique
synergy happening.
things.
Yeah, I shoot. So Sony, well, you're
Candid.
Canon, right? So Sony does the same thing where your viewfinder will give you can kind of have effects. I put on the black and white, and I shoot raw, so I have the color, whatever.
Clients get a little scared
I'm
sometimes.
like, oh, this is black and white. It's like this is just how I operate. It's just so I can focus on a
Yes.
moment instead of like
a technical.
Yeah, and during the show, you might have a really cool lighted scene, and you're like, oh my god, that looks great. Take a picture, and then you look at the content of the picture, and you're like, this is crap. Like, why did I take this picture? It's because it was an interesting colorful picture. So I eliminate that as a distraction, and it simplifies it's one less thing to think about, and
Preach,
it helps.
Kyle. Preach.
It
Preach, Kyler. All day long.
Yeah.
So do you feel like do you shoot film at all?
I do. Not a lot.
Yeah, that does make sense.
But I always have a film camera. I do this stereoscopic stuff, so I have a stereo camera that I bring with me all the time that takes two images at the same time. So that's a 35 millimeter, and then I have my brain is off in La La Land.
That's okay.
I carry a medium format camera. I got one of these little stereo cameras, and then I have a Minolta that's just a 35 millimeter. So I always have those three, and I try to use them here and there. But the film just goes in a bag, and I dump it off at, my go-to lab.
So, I love what I'm hearing from you because it's such a commitment to photography.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 100% the reason why I wanted you on here as a photographer. But I can't help, I admire that stance.
Right.
I'm a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
I'm photo forward. If you look at my website, I'm not talking about my work as Alice's assistant, because at the end of the day, whenever this job goes away, I identify as a photographer more than or more of like I identify as someone who's documentarian or whatever.
Now, do you feel you need to? What's that?
I interrupted you. So.
Oh, no worries. Do you feel like you need, with the advent of so much video, everything is just screaming towards video and stuff like that. Do you feel like you are interested in putting another feather in your cap, or are you standing your ground, or where do you stand with like expanding your creative brushstrokes? I guess
it's tough because I hate editing video. I like capturing video, but I also don't like to revisit it. So if somebody puts it in my hand and says, "Get me some content," I can do it. I'm competent with the camera. I've got the gimbal, and I can know how to get some interesting stuff, but it doesn't excite me. So although when I see the finished product, like we did, Alice has another band called the Hollywood Vampires.
Oh yeah.
And so we did a whole
with Johnny Depp.
Yes, with Johnny Depp and Joe Perry and Tommy Henderson, whose birthday is today, actually. So he was in Alice's band also, and then of course Alice. And so those are like the core members of that band, and we were doing the song "Heroes." In they do a lot of cover songs, right? Okay. So we're recording this song "Heroes" for their last record that David Bowie wrote and recorded. So we were in Berlin, and the opportunity was to go first it was, do you guys want to see the studio that Bowie recorded "Heroes" in?
Nah, we're okay.
Nah, we got to Of course we're interested. And then it's like, well, we actually have some time. Do you guys want to record something there? And we were in the middle of making this record. And they're like, absolutely. Tommy is really the spearhead of this. It's his baby. So Tommy goes, he's a New York guy. We're gonna go in there and do this thing. So you gotta film it. And I'm like, why don't I film?
Yeah.
So I just gathered up all my gear and kind of guerrilla style filmed. I had a couple steady cameras and I just floated around with this, this stuff.
Sure.
And we got some really cool things. But it's totally my style, like really really guerrilla style.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a I'm not a filmmaker, and I'm not a director. But again, it was like no pressure because I could just capture what was happening. So they did do. I have gotten into some of that stuff, but it's not in my wheelhouse.
Do you feel like it's something you want to learn, need to learn, or you feel anxiety doing?
I have anxiety about my skill set all the time. I'm like, because I'm kind of a one-trick pony. Mm-hmm. You put me in front of Alice or someone that I have a relationship with, and I can deliver some really cool stuff. You put me in front of somebody else that, I've been hired to shoot people, not in an assassin way, but
sure, I know what you mean.
You get hired on the tour, and they're like, hey, we want you. We like some of your stuff. Can you come and do this? The same thing for us. I'm like, I can try. And I've been in this situation where I get out there and the person that I'm trying to shoot is just, I'd rather take pictures of a stale loaf of bread.
Yeah, you rather have a root canal.
Yeah, Jesus. I mean, I can't create a vibe. Mm-hmm. So, but I know they're not being able to direct people or not having that skill set is something that I wish I had more of.
Sure.
And then being able to have the flexibility to, okay, the photo stuff is drying up this month. I want to go do something else.
Sure.
Video would be great, or doing some sort of director's role could be cool. I don't have that sort of, I don't have the
you got to learn. I mean, you're in a position where you could almost, I would think you would be able to.
I could just do the same stuff.
Do video and have an enormous playground.
But yeah,
test it out like you did with photo. You said I kind of had to learn it as I went.
Right.
And you learned I'm going to turn the camera to black and white because I don't. You learn your little idiosyncrasies.
Sure.
I
mean, certainly. The cameras. I'm using Sony cameras, and it captures great video and stuff. So, I do. I mean, I've been getting more film or more video stuff, but it's just not. I don't like editing it.
But you don't have to necessarily be all DIY. I don't.
Right.
I don't edit. I don't color.
Right.
I don't have the time to hold a camera.
Yeah. Right.
Anymore. I used to hold this big 35.
Get over here.
But I mean, that's why I love photo. And what you said a second ago of being able to, if this is dry, then I go over here. And yes, I do have a lot of little creative feathers to draw from.
I think if I were to do it, it would just be in that, like, it's another way to make a living. And what scares me is that when this job disappears, I don't want to go back on the road. I don't want to look for another, Of course, I take a man's pants off for a living. That's my main gig.
Yeah,
wardrobe changes, and whatever. I'm schlepping luggage and scheduling, and that's my meat and potatoes day.
Yeah,
and then the photography thing keeps me from going crazy. What funny? I saw this this interview with Rick Rubin. And that guy is really cool. So
he's tapped in.
Yes. So he's very zen. And in this interview, he said something, I'm misquoting, whatever. But the gist was that, the instinct as a creative is to quit your job and to jump in and dive headfirst into turning your art into your income. And he's like, there's a negative to that, in that now you have this pressure to create something because you have to, instead of a lot of artists they create art because they have something to say, whereas if you turn it into your job, you're creating art because you have to say something.
Sure.
So that's my fear, is that if I get into a situation where I've now made this my main source of income, then I change the dynamic, and my art is different. That's so that is something that worries me, and I'm in a situation now with Alice where I don't have the pressure to create.
You're in a very insulated,
and I always tell people I have the cheat codes. People ask me, how do you do this? How I have all the cheat codes. I get to try every day. The same thing. If I don't get what I want, I get to redo it. Nobody's going, you didn't.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I got nobody's telling me what to do in that sense. So
When I went on your page and was clicking through it and stuff like that, you know what? Over the work, which the work kept me going on your page because I loved it. But I was like, here's a photographer making prints, selling prints, having an online store, as I'm doing that as well.
right.
Has photographs at the Morrison Gallery.
So do I.
Yes, it's an honor.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge honor.
I mean, especially when you and I were those kids looking back at Slash with the towel wrapped around his head.
I cried when I went into the gallery and like saw my picture up there with it was like next to I don't know, it's probably a Bob Gruen. Just it's very cool.
It is.
Yeah, it's validating.
It's an honor.
Yeah.
But what drove me to wanting to have you on here right away, so many people would love to hear that you own your photographs.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it's about. That's what it's about for me. You can only do such great work or see your artist as a legend if you are gonna have ownership in it. And there's this, my work is in this,
right,
versus being hired gun and it being a checklist or a punch box,
right?
To get
here's your punch list of all the shots that you want.
Like working for fucking People magazines, right, and shit.
And there's definitely a time and place for that.
There is a need, but as we talk about what's going to happen to you moving forward,
right?
Hell, you own your own work.
Right.
That's a start.
Oh, it's huge. And
I mean, you've made prints. I mean, these right here are what? They're postcards.
These are postcards. So
like you have postcards made, and these are your photos. And
right.
I hope you make
so basically, when we're on the road, sometimes there's an opportunity to sell a few things at the merch stand. So I have these guys, and Alice will sign one, and then he lets me keep the money. But I don't get paid really on a day-to-day basis to do the photo thing.
Because you're the assistant.
I'm the assistant.
It's a personal assistant.
But I do they allow me to sell prints. I keep all my images. If we're doing the book, they use a lot of photos. And I sort of have this freedom to do that, as long as I'm not overstepping, you know what I mean? Of
course.
I can't go and make T-shirts.
No.
And I try to be very respectful. Like, this technically, it's a photograph, but it is a postcard. I sell them in like little 5-packs, and
at shows
as well.
Yeah,
right? At shows. Yeah, sure. I mean, I sell. They're on my website. I don't really sell them on the website, but I sell a few here and there, and it's just extra pocket money, and it's money out of thin air. That's not like competing with anything. So as long as I'm not overstepping,
sure.
But there is that. I really don't want to take advantage. So I kind of operate in very slow.
But you would admit having the ownership drives you.
Oh, absolutely. There would be no incentive for me to do that if I didn't own the imagery. That would be like, why would I go through all this effort to do this if I wasn't going to actually the goal, I think, at the end of the thing, at the end of the day, when my life shifts away from this, I want to have something. I'm trying to build a life raft.
Yeah,
really.
Sure.
So,
but a legacy too.
A legacy. You're right.
I mean,
a legacy life raft.
Yeah, that's how I look at even things with my kids.
Yeah.
I want something to be remembered with them. I mean,
right.
If we look at photos and wonder, God, who was in the room with blah, then, well, your dad.
Yeah, if I could,
your dad was.
If at some point in my life somebody can go and use my name in the same breath as like a Bob Gruen is one of my favorites, so I'll use him. So, or like a Ross Halford, whatever. Mm-hmm. If somebody can use my name in the same breath as those guys in discussing, then I'm happy.
Is there a photographer when you made that shift, when you got stabbed, shit, and you chose the career path of photography, to scratch that creative itch,
right,
and to keep you in the music and in the underdog fight.
Right.
That I am too.
Yeah. I like it. I like things to be difficult. Yeah, I like it to be really an uphill battle.
Was there ever a time that you felt like, I'm catching my stride? Mm-hmm. This is it.
Yeah.
And was there... I look up to, like, a lot of my idols were directors. I do have some photo idols that I love to try to emulate or come close to. When you made that shift and said photo is going to be it, did you have photographers or people, role models? You're like, I like that work, I'm going to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I keep bringing up like Bob Gruen is one, Jim Marshall. I mean, there's legends, but the thread there is candids, because that's the thread. And so like I because I'm working with Alice Cooper, he's a legend.
Of course,
he's around all these people all the time. You know, I had pretty early on, I had the opportunity to like talk to Bob Gruen in like I was in the room and he's talking with Alice, and then, you know, so I took a minute to
That's awesome.
ask him. So I'm like, how did you create that thing? And he just, and I have taken this and given this advice to other people in sort of my own version. Mm-hmm. But he goes, you know, it's like, it's right place, right time type of situation. But don't get thrown out of the room. You just have to be kind of part of the scene. And, you know, it's an instinct, not, you know, I'm like a scientist. I'm behind a microscope, and my subject is on the slide.
Sure.
And I'm not interacting with the slide. Mm-hmm. I'm only capturing what's happening there. And so I operate that way most of the time.
That's awesome.
And so I think he said something, right place, right time. But then I sort of extrapolated this, and I've thought about how I kind of became my path. When you're in the middle of your life, it's
sure.
You know, you don't know what the hell's going on. But then when you look back, you're like, well, it was a straight line.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yes.
And I realized that I just kept putting myself in the right place. Mm-hmm. And then the right time came around.
That's cool.
And that's how, you know, whatever. But so...
But you looked at their work, and, you know, was there, when you looked at yours, you're like, man, I'm in that groove. I'm in it now.
That was, I mean, honestly, that, like, fairly early on, when I started really taking it seriously and really thinking about composition and started shooting, trying to recreate those images that gave me goosebumps when I was a kid and made me want to get into music.
Yeah, you had to discover the time.
I'm reverse engineering those guys.
That's exactly it. That's what I did. You know, you start shooting, you're like, that has to catalog. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And you honestly,
right.
You strip, you have to learn stroke. Has to do this.
Right.
Camera,
right,
in the room.
That's it. And don't get thrown out. Yes. That's the number one thing. Don't get thrown out.
I had the honor of being in the room and getting to chat with Esteban Oriol.
Oh, cool!
One of my favorite photographers in LA that captures all that street life, Latino culture, and it's just, I mean, the Godfather of that world, and just the stuff he was able to teach, you know, just little things that he does where he speaks. You're like, I'm gonna be a sponge and
just soak it up.
That's cool. Now, what would you have a favorite photo? Like you would hang on your wall.
I have a few photos that I've printed, and you walk in my house. My work's all kind of scattered around.
Oh, really?
But I try to keep it like not just straight up Alice related, because people like walk in my house. I'm like, wow, you really like
Alice Cooper.
Right? I'm like, well, but there's a couple of those, but from that Hansa Studios in Berlin where we did Heroes.
With Johnny Depp,
right? So there's we're in the middle of this shoot, and I'm doing all video. So they were taking a break, and I take one of my cameras and I switch it back over to like photo modes, because I'm like this, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, you know.
So you're freaking out.
I'm freaking out.
You're not comfortable.
No, I'm out. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm out of my comfort zone.
Okay, good.
And so, which is great. Honestly, that's
It
like
is.
the best feeling to be outside of your
Yes,
comfort
yes.
zone, and that's my goal this year is to get outside of my comfort
So
zone.
I got out of my comfort zone recently. Okay.
Yes, it's good though. So anyway, so Johnny, like the way everybody's sort of recording this big room. It's where they recorded Heroes. It's like this big moment. We're filming this thing, and it's all on me to document everything. So I'm terrified that it's not going to come out. And they're recording it straight to vinyl. It's like this really cool thing. Anyway, so we're taking a break. And he goes behind, like, where we're all kind of filming. There's, like, this upper dressing room area. And there's a big old open window, and he's out, smoking. And so I go up there, and we, I've gotten to know him quite a bit. So we're just talking about
Johnny
music.
Depp, that is.
Johnny, yeah.
You call him Johnny.
Joe. Jenny, what's up, man? No, he's so we're in this thing, and he's got his head shaved because he's doing Fantastic Beasts at the moment, right? So he's taking a break from filming to do this tour.
So he was filming.
He was not. Yeah, he's in the middle of
Okay,
doing
so
that
it wasn't
role.
okay. So it wasn't known what he was doing.
Right. I don't think it was like he had been. Nobody really knew what he was going to be looking like. So he had had his head shaved on the side, and it looks cool. So he's ultimately he's a fucking cool dude. So he's smoking cigarettes, and we're talking about how cool it is that we're in this studio up with our guys, but we're recording this song that David Bowie had recorded there in the same space, and we almost like we had just missed him. You know what I mean? It feels like because time moves very quickly, and we just missed him. And the room is the same, the dressing room is the same, and I'm like, he's probably sat at this window smoking a cigarette, looking outside on the same little courtyard. It was the coolest thing. So I had this cool, interesting moment, and I took a picture. I have a couple of portraits from that series of just, I think, maybe 5 or 6 pictures because I don't want to overdo it,
Sure.
But that's one of my favorite pictures of him. It's one of my favorite pictures.
Were you alone too?
Just me and him. Yeah,
That's awesome.
we were, giving his security guys the middle finger while they're like down in the courtyard. But just kind of cool. Sometimes that personal connection to my work is really important to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to get sort of the intimacy in those photos is important.
Yeah.
And so they're meaningful to me. That's why I like to say that I shoot pictures for my own memory and it's more about my story. So like
You're in that photo like we talked about 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
There's a photo that I'm kicking myself for not having a camera, not technically taking pictures professionally at this point.
Right.
It was for a Duran Duran music video, and I was just meeting with Simon Le Bon and Nick Rhodes at 2 different hotels. Right. But I met Nick at the Chateau, at the top villa.
Right.
And it was in the afternoon, the sunset is just going. As
soon as you walk in, you're like,
the curtains are blowing.
Ugh.
The white curtains are blowing.
Ugh.
He's in some like white, I don't know, linen-y kind of thing. A piano in the corner. And we were there for about 45 minutes talking. And I'm just like, I just didn't have a camera. I didn't. I wasn't.
You weren't thinking.
I wasn't in that space at that time.
Right.
And I those photos, as you're saying, like, who would be in the room with Nick Rhodes at that time with curtains blowing in over Sunset Boulevard, the haze out there, the palm trees at the chateau,
right? I the
so
regret.
That's the wall.
Right.
That's
it.
the wall photo, the shot.
Right.
I've got Polaroids or something with me doing a wardrobe fitting or something.
Right.
I'm dancing on a bed and Simon's got socks on and just a leisure, nothing else, and it's a Polaroid, but like funny shit.
But to have like, I've learned that lesson. My lesson of always bring a camera.
Yeah.
No matter what anybody says, I don't care if I have to disassemble it and reassemble it. Once I get beyond the security or whatever, always bring a camera. We went to a Lady Gaga show, which is out of the wheelhouse for Alice, right?
Sure.
But he loves her. She's great. Yeah. So
depending on what era it was for Gaga.
I don't remember which one it was, but we went to her show and she was phenomenal. And I wasn't expecting to like go backstage or anything. But of course, she invited us to come back and say hello. And I think it was after her show. And, there's these moments of the two of them talking, and then Alice chokes her. And all I have is my iPhone. And I'm like, all right, so I take this.
You're at first, you're like, I want the exposure.
Right. It was awful. So I take this picture, and it's horrendous quality because it's dark. It's a dark room. It's all super grainy. But the moment is there, he's choking her. He's got his hands around her, and she's like laughing, and like it got posted and then went viral. I'm like, great. That's the picture that everybody's gonna fucking remember. But that was a lesson. Always bring a camera. If I'm going to be shooting, you never know what you're going to come across. It's going to be interesting, and it might not even be a person. It could just be anything. But I almost always have a camera with me. There was something else that I was going to say, but I forgot.
That's all I am. Just ideas, and they come in, went out. I do have a question I think would be really interesting to talk about that isn't even on my ideas, but I know I would love to know it. But let's talk about your process in how I call it shifting gears. So, I don't want to keep using the same photo of Johnny Depp, your favorite photo, but it's so recent.
Sure.
And you guys are friends. But before that, before you were friends and acquainted, or even with Alice,
right?
There's a level of how fast you need to shift into getting what you need to get.
Right.
You start off wide, back of the room.
Yeah.
You might just click. But there's your process and how you get in is all very delicate, and it's almost not taught, but it came up in my mind as something that would be really fun to talk about with you.
Yeah.
I have a story with Yellow Wolf I would like to discuss about
I'd love to hear
after.
Okay.
Your process. Is that something you can relate to what I'm saying? Because we relate to so many other things.
Absolutely.
You can't just be like, hey, Alice and Johnny.
No, you can't. Whoa, you can't just jump into a space. Like, I'm allowed in that sacred zone.
Yeah.
Alice doesn't allow anybody in this dressing room. No photos, nothing. So I'm part of the dressing room, so I sort of have a pass.
Yeah.
But it was delicate to kind of get there. And it was a slow, like over 2 years, yes. I probably kind of slowly, it's, trying to get a stray dog to come to you kind of a thing. It's like, you leave a little thing here. And so here's something that I took while you were thinking, but you didn't even know I was taking a picture, but check this one out.
Walk away.
This is cool. Yeah.
Right. See.
And also trust has a lot to do with it too. Knowing that I'm not going to, and I'm not going to photograph you in a compromised position.
Exactly.
And if I happen to catch something, I'm not going to use that. So that's important, knowing that you're trustworthy and you're allowed into you're in the trust tree. So one of the things that I did early on was use like a zoom lens, right? So I'll be on the other side of the room. And I actually have here.
Bring out the props.
So I every time he puts his makeup on, I am taking a picture, right? That's not the picture I'm thinking of, but here we go. So, but I'm taking that because I want that. I have like every single show that I've been at, I've gotten the picture of him taking.
Is that on a mirror or is that onto him?
That's on a mirror.
Through a mirror.
Right. So, but I'm far away. I think it's like
180,
70 to 300 is the lens, right? So I don't know where it is, but I have to look. But I'm far away. So and he doesn't know I'm taking this picture.
Okay.
So, but this was one of the ones that I was like, I want to show him kind of what I can kind of capture here. And this is one of my favorite pictures that I've taken of him. The detail there is
rad.
cool.
It is rad.
And it's just kind of like a tight little weird picture, and that's kind of one of my signatures is his makeup mode.
Sure. I have when I first got into the studio with Yellow Wolf on Love Story, I was they had already been in there for like a month, so I'd come in kind of hot,
Right.
Here we are,
right?
And my approach, because I get hired sometimes just to go
get the shot with a band I've never met.
Right.
Or an artist. You know, here, come on in.
That's
go
terrifying.
do it. Go do you.
Right.
You know, so my method in not directing
how do you break the ice?
Yes. So when I'm shooting, I absolutely let myself be seen and known. Even though, let's say, Yellow Wolf, in this instance, he was at the board doing things. And I'll be back there where he doesn't see me, and I have the camera down, and it's just to let him know I crawl, like not crawl, but like scoot my way closer to where if I look through my lens and I see him doing this, and then just once look at me, and I just turn the thing down, I stay there. I might go click.
Right, very slow.
Let him do his thing.
Very slow.
I might back out, go around the room, get out of his close space, but still not be seen. And and then if I see him do play to the camera,
then you
game on.
Yeah.
I come back around, I'm in fourth gear, and I quickly get to film.
Right, exactly.
So that's my method almost with everyone.
Yeah, very similar. If I'm shooting somebody that I don't know,
be seen.
Yeah.
I have a camera. I'm not blasting a machine gun here.
Right.
I'm going to snap, even though that snap, it might not even been a card in the camera. I don't care.
Right.
It's just to let him know
you're there.
I'm there, and I'm working towards getting it, and he's giving me the green.
Right. Yeah, you have to wait for the invitation.
Yes.
You can't, there's a picture that...
That's important.
It is. You can't, because that's how you get thrown out.
That's how you get thrown out of the room.
That's how you're not invited anymore. Exactly. Because you're like, oh, this is get him out of here.
Overextended your coverage.
Yes.
You went too far.
Go too far. And it's a very, very fine line. And I have a lot of access that I get via Alice. And even when he's not around, like, people kind of know my thing with him. And that the trust that he has with me sort of gets extended sometimes with other artists, which is surprising, But it's cool. But you never want to overstep.
Well, here's a fun story about Morgan Wallen. When I shot his photos for his album release at Bridgestone.
Yeah.
We had shot some stuff during the day and everything, and it was getting time. And some people were like, "Oh, he's intense right now. He just leave him alone. He's going back there to work out."
Sure.
No, I'm gonna go poke my head.
Right.
And he was doing weights with his trainer. And they were getting into it, and I'm way in the back. But there was only two people in Bridgestone, so it was the Predators' weight room. So it's a big weight room.
Sure, a lot of room.
I see them look, and I just hug a wall and camera down.
Right.
Just playing the room a little bit. They start doing the thing. I snap. I leave.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
Okay.
And that's part of... And he asked me, like, did you get any cool shots when we were working out? I'm like, nah, the lighting wasn't right. I just want to get into your space and, such and such. And I really think he was like, that's cool. That's like, you came in to assess.
Try.
Move on.
And you have to be able to let go. You have to be able to say.
Absolutely. It's not here.
I've got enough. Or I maybe creatively, like, I think you're in a different position because you're there to do a job and get in, and you have to mine the ore when you're in the mine.
Yes.
But I
don't have a list.
I'm the coal miner. I'm in that I can mine every day.
I'm lucky too, though. I don't have punch lists.
Right.
No one gives.
You have no idea what you're gonna get.
No. And I'm being. Oftentimes there are other photographers there. Right. And I'm there to shoot a specific wall. I'm getting the shot.
Right.
And
they're getting filler.
There's a lot of assets to be directed at too, and I appreciate that, but I just don't see it that way.
Yeah.
We've talked already for an hour. We're in the weeds of we are our own worst critic.
Oh yeah.
We could have Morgan Wallen or Alice Cooper in front of us, but it's just another subject. I have a goal. Eminem, whoever. It's
to get a photo that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing necessarily the stardom.
Right.
I'm obsessed with beyond that, and how am I going to get it? And that's I guess what helps me.
That's your process.
Direct the talent and pull that out. I guess.
Right.
I don't know. I just discovered that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Tell the shrink I don't need her.
Cancel my
appointment.
Do you have in my, because I'm obviously not the only photographer that's shooting him. We're very often in a situation where somebody is shooting him for something specific, and I'm also there. And then early on, I would get kind of like bummed out or butthurt,
Territorial.
Maybe territorial a little. Because like
piss on your turf a little bit.
Like, come on, man, this is my world. This is my world, and so like and I used to get kind of keyed up about that sort of thing, and then I made this conscious mental shift. It was like, man, I have taken like over 2 million photos of him. That's a real number. I've done the math. There's a lot.
I've got the hard drives to prove it,
dude. I have enough, right? And so I've got it. Like I whatever. Nobody's gonna take that little whatever trophy away from me. But it used to kind of irk me that like we would be in a situation where we might need a photo for something, and they would hire someone, and I'm like, and even Alice would kind of look. He would go, "Why are we?" But that's not up to me often. And
I understand what you're saying.
But yeah, so like I used to get my ego like, but then I kind of got I had to make this conscious shift and really like think differently and go, you know what? Somebody else can come in here and do this, and it doesn't affect me. And I was curious, like if you have that sort of thing, if you're working closely, like tandem with somebody kind of on the same project, but you're two different things. They're not competitors because we're not in competition.
Not at all, but it's yes.
Yeah.
I was
weird.
What was it? I was on a video shoot with Jake Owen on the boat again. He just pulled out of the dock. And I sit Troy, I don't even know if you know this. I sat next to Jake, and he just outright goes, "So does it piss you off when other people are like when Yellow Wolf chooses other people?" And I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah,
it does.
Sure.
Because I put in so much effort and time into it, and you get out this emotion and this kinship and friendship, but I've been through a few of those where I did all of Good Charlotte videos, and all of a sudden they stopped using someone else. And at a young age, it really affected me.
Yeah.
And I've been through maybe 3, Wolf being one of them.
Sure.
Because we spent 9-10 years of doing beautiful work.
Right.
But at some point, there does need to be a flavor change at times. Totally. And that's even what Jake said to me on that boat. He goes, "I can understand why you would think that, but don't."
Right.
Coming from an artist himself.
Sure.
You've put in the sweat equity.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And
you have the work that...
And here I am telling you that.
And it doesn't... And just because there's a season change and maybe you part ways with an artist or even a style or...
Sure.
Like maybe shifting from photos to video or whatever. It doesn't negate the work that you already have created. And it doesn't change, like you have a relationship with Yellow Wolf, and I have a relationship with Alice, and that's what it is. It's not that somebody else is in there mining in my mind.
Yes.
That's not it.
No.
It's like he's part of my family. I've known him so long now that he's part of my family, and so I'm territorial and protective of him because they do, like sometimes people will come in and they will break the rules, like he doesn't like to be photographed in the daytime, and I know that. Like
unless he's on a golf course,
unless he's on the golf course, but he's a vampire basically.
Sure.
Vampires don't exist during the day.
Yeah.
There's all these silly little cardinal rules and like character things that I know about him, and so I know that stuff, and then somebody will come in and break through, and I'm like,
yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is.
And you have the iconic photos, and I had to tell myself that at times, when you think like, okay, It's normal. I think it's normal, and I think there's probably many others that would agree. And
Right.
you know, whatever, like you said, a season changes and they move on to something different. You know,
I have a funny story. So there's one. I think it's here. It's a behind the scenes photo. I don't remember which one it is. Maybe it's not here, but we were doing a shoot for like a pretty sizable thing, and the photographer comes to me to, like, you know, it's picking out wardrobe, and they're using my photos as the
references.
And I'm like, just to zoom in on my eye, twitching. I was just like, okay.
So what do you do?
I just play along. I mean, my goal, my gig is his assistant. So
Go around the corner and punch dirt.
yeah, I'm like, but no, you're helpful. You know, I try to be helpful and facilitate. My goal is still, I have two different things. I have to separate those two things. But it is kind of funny, like,
See, with me, I don't have the insulation that you have with one artist. You know,
right? Yeah, I have definitely a safety net.
It's like, for me, it is, you know, you're trying to. I've said it to a couple. I don't know if I might have said it on an episode. For me, you have a jersey.
Yeah,
You were given a jersey to a team.
right.
You proudly wear that jersey. I can hear you in your voice,
Sure.
in your smiles when you talk about your team leader,
Right. Sure.
Alice. You know,
Yeah.
I work with a number of artists.
But you were in your own jersey.
I wear my own jersey, and that's kind of where I was like, I'm going to start this podcast.
Right.
It's my jersey.
Yeah.
It's me.
I love it.
And that's, I always, I guess, you know, when you feel like you're working towards that jersey, and then all of a sudden you realize that you're really not on the team.
Right. Yeah. You.
It doesn't diminish how I approach it. It's just now I've accepted the fact that I'm on the outside. I feel like I'm roaming the prairie lands, and you know, just
I've had that though. Even in my position, you realize that, like, okay, wait a minute. You know, you're part of the family, blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, you know, these are as close as I am. I'm realistic about the fact that they're still. I'm close to the inside.
Sure.
Closer than most people.
Sure.
But I'm not. That's an ego thing. You know, I'm not one of these people. So you know, and it's easy to kind of, when you're around that sort of thing, you're part of the posse and you're doing your stuff. The ego comes in and you're like, oh, this is about me.
yeah, no.
Not about me.
I think a lot of young content creators can take some advice from that.
Yes.
You know, we came up probably a similar era. That's why we have so many things in common. You know, a lot of the young guys come in, they don't necessarily know. They come in hot,
Right.
you know, and
They don't know the rules, like the decorum.
code. You know, and we've been saying it on every episode. When it comes to this line of work or whatnot, it's the trust. It's the relationship. It's like we've said it 5 times. It's being able to be allowed in the room.
Right. It's think about your first date with someone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. I mean, some people do, but they don't get asked for a second date. They come in and they go right for the intimacy. Yeah. You can't do that because
no foundation.
There's no foundation. You have to build your you have to build your relationship with your subject. Even if you're only with them one day, you still have to do the work and build the trust, and you can't just go in guns blazing, because then it feels forced, and then you're in ugly territory. And it's the same thing with building a relationship with a human being that you're interested in a friendship or a relationship with. It's the same work, and you have to approach it that way, I think.
Where do you see the business going for you moving forward, like the future? I mean, you just kind of gonna. Do you see a need to branch out for yourself? And
totally. I'm in it.
Is that something you're gonna?
I would like to. Yeah. I'm in a comfortable position, so it's real easy for me to just kind of snuggle into my warm, cozy blanket of ease and whatever. When we're off tour, I'm still working as his assistant, so I don't have the urgency to go out there and do anything else. But that's not going to be forever. So like, I'm definitely, I want to.
Do you feel like maybe some of your, but do you feel like some of your your weapons to hunt are a little bit soft?
They're a little
soft. You're not as, your nails have been cut off your claws. And
right, I'm a domesticated house cat now. What the hell's going on here?
Look at the milk. You know what I mean? But versus pulling out different things. Is that something your arm...
I try my best because, shooting the same thing all the time, it gets kind of stale. I allow myself breaks from shooting, and I allow myself. One of the things that I do to keep my my creative chops up, because that's really what it is. I do this stereoscopy stuff, which is a different mindset. I'm using different brain things, and so it's a 3D.
Oh, is this that?
This is that.
Yeah.
So
I want to see this.
So this is
describe it.
Basically, what it is you're taking an image, the same moment. It has to be the exact same moment or very close to it. If you have a still subject, you can kind of take the same camera and take two different perspectives. But it's basically what your eyes do. Your brain has this amazing ability to take two images and blend them together and create a three-dimensional image. That's how we get depth, right? And so it's the same idea, and it's an old idea. Stereoscopic photography has been around. Stereoscopic. So it's been around since the dawn of photography. But some of the first cameras were stereo cameras, and some of the first images were drawings. Like stereoscopic drawings, like medical drawings. Anyway, I'm a nerd about this stuff. I had a film camera that I was always bringing with me. It was a pain in the butt to try to get anything good out of it because it's limited. And I only had so many photos. And so I wanted to get a digital version, and I couldn't find, nobody made a good one. So I built one. And the idea is that it takes the same image at the same time from two slightly different perspectives. My lenses are exactly this distance apart. Right? And I have them triggered like with a remote shutter, and it triggers both cameras at the same time. And it's not perfect, but so that's what these are. Two images from that camera, left and right, and you just put that up against your face, and then your eyes will blend the two together, and it's 3D.
Whoa, that's a beautiful photo.
So I'm in the same environment, I'm trapped there.
That is awesome.
But it gives me something else to do.
What a cool photo.
Yeah, thank you.
So you just as a tool to keep you inspired.
It keeps me inspired, and it keeps me out of my. Sometimes I will take a break from my normal day-to-day photo routine, and because I just you start to get stale. But this is it allows me to keep doing the same thing, but I'm thinking differently.
I see you in the corner.
Yeah.
And dude, Alice is literally like foreground, background.
It's amazing. The stereoscopic thing is so cool. So I'm a huge stereoscopy nerd. That keeps me sort of fresh.
Sure.
In that way, because I will find myself going stale, or I'll be in an environment where there's other photographers out in the same tour, and I start to go, well, why am I even here doing this? I'll get Alice when it's by himself and it's just us. Okay. And then I'll go, there's four other people here doing the same thing. It's kind of like too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Mm-hmm. So I shift gears and do something that nobody else is doing. And that helps me mentally kind of feel like, okay, I'm still participating, and I'm not just, over egging the pudding or whatever. I mean, but I also try to go into weird environments that are not normal for me. Like street photography is a great way if you're trying to like learn how to do concert shots. Yeah, go down to Broadway. And shoot at night. If you can get a good photo in that environment, because the light is always changing. There's always cars moving around. There's traffic, that kind of thing.
Neon lights, colors, funky colors,
weird stuff. And that's a great way to practice and get into an environment that is hard, like a venue that has no lighting. or it's just
even trying to control your corners.
yes.
That's a big one for me. I know we're getting it. I relate to what you're saying about the
shifting gears, kind of
it's keeping inspired.
right.
From directing to photo, I go through different fads.
Me too.
I'll be like DSAT. In directing, I'll be like all handheld.
Right.
We're gonna be steady cam.
Right.
You're gonna go spherical lenses versus anamorphic lenses. Natty versus. I mean, I just go through different kicks, and it seems like it's seasonal, almost like maybe I go through 2 fads a year. Every 6 months, I'll be like, and I'll switch between whichever one I'm hyped on or I'm getting particularly, that feeling of like I'm doing something unique in my work.
Right.
I'm stretching it, like you're saying, with other things, pushing the envelope.
Right.
I do that a lot.
Yeah, you have to. I find if I start getting really stale, I'm not a gearhead. I don't really give a rip what camera it is.
Sure. No.
If I can get what I would love to own a Leica camera, but I can't. I haven't found one that I have gone, I'm not going to be able to take another picture unless I have this camera.
No.
Whatever.
I'm not that way.
And they're it's all great, but to me it's like I could still capture what I need out of this thing. If I find something that's going to give me another tool to be able to get something new, that's when I'm like, oh yeah, I'm into that. Or like it's a different lens maybe, or whatever it is. So I'll invest in those sorts of things. And then of course you have to upgrade with technology and stuff too. But I try not to get caught up in like the tech stuff.
Sure.
Because then I feel like that kind of is, you just kind of get derailed, I think, with that stuff.
So do you feel like, your quest for the shot, because you're shooting same subject.
Yeah.
What does keep you excited? Is it you don't know what's around the corner?
You have no idea what's going to happen. Like we were on tour last year, and we had Jimmy Page came to one of the gigs, and we had Tony Iommi came to one of the gigs, and there's always these things there, and those sorts of things are like little life rafts in the middle of the ocean, as like, that's something to latch onto and get excited about. And then there's the mundane, like day-to-day stuff. I could say it like it's no big deal, but I'm not blind to the cool factor that I get to do this every day. But you just never know what's going to be around the corner, and you never know, like those iconic moments that can happen at any time in any circumstances. I mean, we went to a mall somewhere, I don't remember where, but it's just me and Alice and his wife, and I think we were at like a TGI Fridays or something like that. Something stupid, we're just sitting there. And they're casual clothes, and there's a giant pile of onion rings in the middle of the table. And it was the coolest, I just took a picture. But it's one of my favorite pictures I've taken of them as a couple, because they're both on the phone talking to like different people. And there's this giant thing of onion rings, and Alice has got one in his hand. And it's just kind of this moment. And I don't know why I love that photo, but it's just kind of, you just never know when something is going to, it's like, why do you keep going to, like, I don't know if you're a foodie.
Oh yeah.
Right. Why do you keep going out to nice restaurants? You've had the meal before. Sure. You've eaten that meal.
It's a good analogy.
You know what it's going to take. You know what it's going to taste like, but you keep going because it's, I don't know what it is. It's like a weird thing. Or why do you as human beings, why do we keep having sex? Or why do we keep, what drives us to keep doing the same thing? I don't know.
But it is, like you said, it's the iconic moment is around the corner.
Right. You
might walk up on that jet that you've done 24 times,
right,
with Alice, and then all of a sudden you get in, and now it's 2 other people with them that you're like,
right. Or the lighting is just
Yeah,
right.
you just
You know, like
click,
yeah.
you know, boom, done.
him reading a paper. Like that's a
that's
great.
I can see that.
There's a great picture that I got of him. I love airplane photos because it's something different.
And the light's usually pretty good with the window light.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm a jet guy.
Yeah, me too. I love it. It's so cool. There's one picture of him sitting and he's reading the airplane, magazine, whatever. It was a commercial flight.
Oh, okay. Pamphlet?
Yeah, he's reading. No, he's not the pamphlet, but he's reading the in-flight magazine, and he's on the cover of the in-flight magazine. Right.
Wow,
so he's
that's
reading
cool.
the thing, and he's reading his own article that he did an interview for a couple of weeks prior, and whatever. He's just kind of street Alice, but
Yeah.
Magoo Alice. He's wearing like this Mr. Magoo hat.
Magoo Alice. I like that.
Mr. Magoo Alice.
Do you have a particular crazy incident ever that might have happened on stage that haunts you? Or
absolutely.
we all have them.
Absolutely. So there's an incident. This is not photo related.
Okay.
Right. So at this time, I was a guitar technician, and I was stage left. So from the audience perspective, on the right side of the stage, and we were doing this tour with Joan Jett and Motorhead and Alice Cooper. So it was like that was the bill, and we're at Wembley. This is my first time at Wembley, and this is this iconic venue. I'm so super excited to be doing a gig there.
Wembley is amazing.
Wembley, right? So, and we're on tour with Joan Jett and Motorhead. I'm a bass player. Lemmy, come on. Like on this tour, I got to sound check with his bass, and it was amazing. Anyway, so
Stop the story there. You're
right,
done.
done. All right, punch me out. No, so we in our show. It's very theatrical, and at the time, Alice's daughter was on the tour, and so her name is Calico. Calico comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, we're gonna change the end of the show. Instead of he does the song Elected, and we all go out there with these signs, and it says vote for Alice, that kind of thing. We're going to change it." And her bit was she would come out as Britney Spears or Paris Hilton or whoever was the pop culture icon at the time, and she would get killed, basically. Because Alice hates anything pop culture. So he gets sacrificed on stage. So instead of that bit, she's like, we're going to do a Spice Girls bit because we're in London and all of my friends are here. And I'm like, okay. Neat.
Okay.
Right. Why are you telling me this? She goes, well, there's only 4 of us, and there's 5 Spice Girls. And I'm like, who do I have to be? So I dressed up as Sporty Spice. I'm wearing a tank top and I'm in my normal outfit. But part of the gig
They
with
got you
Alice,
as sporty?
they put me as Sporty Spice because I don't really fit as Ginger Spice. This is pre-beard.
Yeah, okay.
One of my other nicknames was Babyface. So I had,
Okay.
it worked. So they did me up. I'm backstage, and there's these curtains kind of, but there's a big open area in the wing where the audience can see what's going on behind. And so at this moment in the finale of the show, I've got Joan and Lemmy are on the side of the stage, and all of the girls and me, and we're all kind of hanging out, and I'm ready to go. We're ready to go out. We're waiting for our cue. And those two are looking at us, and I'm in this stupid outfit. I've got my hair, long hair at the time. It's in pigtails, and I've got water balloons, whatever, fake boobs, but I'm hairy chest. It'll be just a
nasty.
It's just a mess, right? And they're laughing. They're kind of laughing at it, and our drum tech comes over, and half the audience can see us, right? Our drum tech comes over and behind me and pulls my pants down, but pulls everything down, pulls it all down. And Joan Jett, I have no idea if she remembers this, but she laughed. She just goes, and Lemmy's there with his whiskey, and he just goes, with his hat. So I, of course, I'm like, wah! I turn around and try to face away from the audience, and then of course now I'm facing Alice's daughter and all of her friends, and I get Willie's hanging out.
I didn't expect that.
There's all kinds of funny Spinal Tap type stories where things don't go correctly. One of the other things that I have to do during his show is there's a lot of theatrics, and I get, because I'm free. I'm not doing a tech job or anything like that. I have a lot of freedom. So
fresh meat.
you get to be the monster for this tour. It's like, okay,
That's cool.
so I have to dress up as some stupid monster thing. But that gets in the way of me being able to capture stuff.
Hey, if I ever come out to a show, can I be a monster?
Sure, absolutely. We'll put you in. That was a time where there's like a 14-foot Frankenstein monster. I've been did that for 9 years. There's a giant inflatable baby. The first time we tried to use the baby, it's got like a hose and like an inlet thing, so the air gets sucked in and fills up the inside of the thing. So you climb into it. There's I'm in this thing, and I go running out to do my bit. I have to crash through the wall, a la like the Kool-Aid Man. So I crashed through this wall. And in that motion, pulled the hose out. So it's just like cycling its own air into it. And so I'm like, it's all this big filled balloon. And then suddenly it just starts to melt and deflate. And I'm like,
That's awesome.
But there's all kinds of stupid Spinal Tap moments.
Man, we have been through, in just our short conversation, we've been through stabbings. We've been through...
Oh, I never told you how Alice stabbed me.
Yes! Troy, you're fired.
Yeah. So it's really fast. He uses a dueling sword during the show, and one time he knocked something over, and I went out there to pick it up and reposition it back to where it was, square. And I just happened to turn around, and he had the sword behind, and he just got me right in the wrist.
Whoa!
And he kind of feels it impact something, and he goes, "Oh shit, are you okay?" And I'm like, and he moves, keeps going, and they fixed me up backstage, whatever. But pretty funny.
The road stories. Everything we've got, man. I appreciate the time that we have spent. We brought props.
Yeah.
It's absolutely eye-opening. Thank you for...
I'm going to leave you with one of these, too. Like, so this is this little guy is a mini version of that. Your kids will get a kick out of this, too.
That's
But the best part about this is that.
Man.
I honestly...
Looking like a psychopath with these things.
I knew this was going to be a hit because anybody who shoots those kind of photos with a legend obviously knows how to stay in the room.
Yeah.
And
100%.
you know how to stay in the room, then you know what's up. And
You're invited into this room.
You're invited to this room, and this was I learned a lot and had a blast.
Me
I
too.
hope you did too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah,
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. Let's do it again.
Please.